Yeah, record quarter for the world's biggest company. They made $111 billion in revenue in the last 3 months, the holiday shopping period of 2020. Now, as for earnings and profits, coming out way ahead of estimates of $1.68. Analysts were calling for $1.41. Let's talk about the individual business segments, because Apple told us that it was double-digit growth in each product category, all-time highs and records there. So iPhone, huge quarter for iPhone sales, $65.5 billion. That's an increase of 17%. iPad did very well as well, $8.5 billion almost. Same thing for Mac. That was a similar number there. And then Wearables, this is now a size of a Fortune 120 company on its own. So Wearables, home and accessories, that segment had $12.9 billion in 3 months in the quarter. Services came out way ahead of schedule as well, $15.761. And again, this is a huge quarter for Apple services and just for sales as a whole. They told us that in terms of the install base, a record number of active iPhones out there of over 1 billion. I also got off the phone with Tim Cook, and here's what he told me about the quarter. He said that we saw some strong double digits in each of the product categories, and we set all-time records to iPhone, wearables, home, accessories, services, and a new December quarter record format. We also achieved double-digit growth, new all-time records in each of the 5 geographic segments, and so the growth really was across the board. Now, as for Apple services, and I mentioned that record number to you in the last 3 months of last year, record performance, strong double-digit growth in the App Store, Apple Music, cloud services, and we set an all-time record in Apple Care. And the new services are also contributing nicely to overall services between Apple TV Plus, Apple Arcade, you have Apple News Plus, the Apple Card, and at the very end of the quarter, you also had Apple Fitness being introduced as well, and Apple One, which is that bundling of all of these services all together for one price a month. It got off to a very good start, and they have over 620 million paid subscriptions across the service. China growth. We know that China is probably where they're going to sell more of these 5G phones, at least for the end and the holiday shopping period of 2020. China in particular, according to Tim Cook, very strong. As you see there, the data sheet in China grew by 57% year over year, powered by the iPhone, obviously key, but other products did well as well. Now, what about the COVID impact? And I asked him about how they're dealing with COVID-19. And clearly, he says, impacting in the U.S., impacting us in Europe. In terms of China, not as much as an impact. And I would say that Asia in general is a very minimal impact. So it's primarily the Americas, not just the U.S., but the entire Americas and Europe. When I asked him about the U.S. economy and his outlook on where we are in the trajectory, whether or not we need more stimulus, Tim Cook says, I do think that would be a smart move to increase stimulus, add another round of checks to reach some sort of bipartisan agreement on a stimulus package. I'm optimistic that once we get out of this pandemic, that the economy can grow nicely. And I just want to, I also asked him about cash levels as well. And when I asked him about inclusive debt and cash levels, $194 billion for one company. That's a slight increase, an uptick in the final 3 months of last year. And finally, I asked him, when are you going to get back to work, back to the head office? He says, currently, we're still holding June, and we're constantly asking ourselves whether that's the right date or not. And it heavily depends upon the vaccine and the distribution of the vaccine. And so we'll see. We could possibly wind up being a little bit later, but somewhere in that June ballpark. So overall, as you see, the world's biggest company, again, it looks like they have delivered on their first $100 billion revenue quarter.